So we're going to use Google Docs as opposed to, say, Microsoft Excel or one of the other tools. And the reason we're going to use Google Docs is because it's available to everyone with a BSU account. And what you'll do is you'll log into your mail like normal. And at the very top here, you've got Calendar and Documents. When you click on Documents, it will load this fancy screen right here. And you've got the ability to upload and convert to a Google Doc any of your Microsoft Office products, or click Create. And one of the options here is Spreadsheet. And since our M&M project here is related to spreadsheets, that's what we're going to click on. Now, as soon as you create it, you'll notice it'll populate. This is called a WYSIWYG, by the way, which is a toolbar that allows you to make adjustments to this web app. Now, I'll just pause for a moment here because I think it's really interesting and exciting that we're using a web page here. This entire application is housed in a web page. It's very powerful computing that's very economical as it relates to computer usage, because this is happening in a web browser. Pretty exciting. If we want to change the name of our activity, which we do, we simply click on the name. And we turn this into, if you borrow my naming convention, which I would encourage, your last name, and then the name of the activity. Hit OK. You'll notice it turns it into M&M Spreadsheet. Now, we've taken our fancy M&Ms, yummy yum, and we've laid them out on the table, sorted them by color, so that we have the ability to then start in our column A here, by the way. In our column, first column, A, row 1, we put the name colors, and then fill in the other colors. Now, having these colors in here, and there should be 6 colors if you've got a really strange color in your bag of M&Ms or your bag of Skittles, whatever you decide to use, that you change this up however you want. I think it's really important to point out that you can put these in any order. It doesn't have to be the same order that I've put them in. You can put them in any order you want, because you've got the ability to then sort them in different ways. We're not going to mess around with that quite yet, but we will in just a little bit. Then we're going to put person 1. This will be me. And if you are sharing these other bags with other members of your family, then they can have their own columns. Ideally, you want to do this with about 4. So I'm going to fill in the numbers of my bag here. Now let me show you something that's interesting. This has some tools so you can make the data look the way you want it to. I can select row or cell B1 here, and I can change, if I want, using the align feature, the way that that data is aligned. I want me in the middle. Now you'll notice with that cell selected, it just selected that one. However, if I click on B here, our column heading, I can affect changes on the entire column, including things I haven't typed in yet. I put in a number down here, it automatically puts it in the same alignment. I'm going to do the same thing by selecting just on the column heading here, and I've selected all of those columns. Going to, again, align that to the center. And as I put in everyone else's, so I've put in all of these numbers. So we'd like to know what each bag looks like. Now mine are peanut M&Ms. You may have much bigger numbers, and that's fine. But I want to do a little bit of math here to find out what this is. So I want to create a sum of this column. In order to do that, I could simply just do the math and type in the number myself, or I could allow the system to do the math. And really, that's what we want. You'll notice that this little function over here allows me to set the sum. Now, as soon as I've selected the cell that I want the results to be in, which I have, and I click Sum, it gives me a formula. Now, I can then drag my cursor across the cells that I wanted to actually do the sum of. You'll notice it's the sum of B2 through B7. It highlights it here in a very nice visual format. I can also see and edit the formula up here, especially if it's a big long one. And I can simply hit return. Now it gives me the math. This is really exciting because if I noticed that, oh my goodness, I had one more yellow than I thought before, I can change that yellow, and you'll notice that the math also changes. That didn't actually happen. I can change it back. The flexibility of this tool to continue to do the math as you change these things or add these things is really important. So I'm now going to select this. It contains the formula or the function sum, and through B2 through B7, and gives me this nice funky little handle. You'll notice when I hover over it, my cursor changes. That allows me to grab and drag that handle over here. Now when I let it go, what do you suppose the formula is going to be in this new cell in column C? Do you think it'll just be a repeat of where I'm dragging it from, or do you think it'll change? The number is different. Let's click on it, see what we get. Clicking on this, we can again see the formula up here. That is sum of C2 through C7. The reason this is because we would refer to this as a relative formula. The formula is relative to wherever it exists. So over here it was column B, so it was B2 through B7. Over here it's column C, C2 through C7. So next, I'm going to drag this over and we have a predictable result. It's going to do the math for each of these columns. And there we are. You'll notice that we have a little bit of a difference. Not all of these bags are the same. First, my bag had 2 more than Mom's did, and had the same number as daughter and 1 more than the son. Well, that's really interesting. So we see in our data that it's not always predictable. In fact, we see as we look across in a way that we may not have before that there are some similarities and there are some differences. One of the most striking differences is that there's not the same number of M&Ms in every bag. Well, we ought to write them and tell them that we got shorted some M&Ms, or maybe secretly we lucked out and got more than we should have. I don't think the M&M Mars company is going to send you a new bag if you're unhappy with the number that you got. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to organize this table so that it looks a little different. And I have selected all of these. In fact, let me just select these down here. Again, I take my cursor and drag to select it. And I want to organize this. Now you'll notice up here that we can actually set borders. I click on this in our WYSIWYG, and I'm going to put a line above all of these values. And so, again, when I click off, we can see that that line has been placed there. That helps us to understand a little bit about what that is. I'm going to give it a title. We're going to call it Totals, which is pretty cool. Now, there are a couple other simple things that we can do. And again, this is a very simple activity, but I want to show you some of the power of organizing data this way. So we're going to figure out what the average of each of these colors will be. So I'm going to type up here average, and then I'm going to come down here where it says into F2, and I'm going to once again add a function. Again, we've got some really nice functions in here. One of them is average. Okay. So I'm going to select average, and you may remember this before. It gives me the opportunity to then drag the cells that I want to do that. If I had screwed that up somehow, I can always hit escape. If I wanted to type that in myself, I could do that. I could equal sum, equal average. And you'll notice it starts to give me how to do this. It teaches me the syntax. It tells me that there are easier ways to do it. But I'm going to do average of B 2, and the colon signifies a series through E2. And it gives me the average. I'm going to organize this data as I did before by selecting the column and then aligning it, say, to the center. This is a lot of space. In fact, way too much space. I'd like these numbers to all be closer together. One of the things that is available to me is I can select, again, these column headings. You'll notice if I hover over the space in between two, it allows me to change the size. And because I had multiple selected, it changes them all to the same size. That's pretty powerful stuff. So I've got an average of 2.5. Well, we may remember that, well, I don't know about you, but there really aren't 0.5 M&Ms. I hope you're not getting 0.5 M&Ms. It means they were broken. I can select right here on my more formats here and see all the different ways that I can display this data. And one of them is rounded, containing no decimal values. So I'm going to do that. Then, once again, I have a handle here that I can drag and copy this relative formula to other places. And so we have our averages. So when we talked in the beginning about possibly using this data to answer questions, to see things in a way that we couldn't before. I mean, I can give you a bag of M&Ms, but if I were to ask you, are there any trends in color distribution in M&Ms? Data like this, organized in this way, would allow you to answer that question more succinctly, or at least with more conviction behind your assumptions. You've actually got some proof, at least in 4 bags. So are there trends? Are there more naturally occurring M&Ms or less likely to be seen colors of M&Ms? In looking at these numbers, I think that we see both the colors blue and orange occur with more frequency than the other colors. Now granted, it's an average of 1, and in one bag it may not be that interesting or significant. You might not say that, well, blue are really common because, say in my son's bag here, blue are really common and so are red. Well, red average out to be more common, but they're not the most common. In fact, blue and orange are historically the most common. And I'd like to see you test this out and see if it's true for you as well. So we've created an average here. What I'd like to do is actually select this top row, go to my data, and choose Filter. This adds a really powerful tool. First of all, I can go up here to colors and say, you know what? I just want to see blue and orange. So I can uncheck anything I don't want to see. And it then sorts just those colors for me. It allows me to view my data in any way that I want. Select all, make them visible again. I can come up here and I can actually sort those. I've got totals in here, which I probably don't want. If I've made a mistake, as I just did here, I can actually go through and click undo and put things back the way I want. You can also do some really interesting just kind of organization. So I'm actually going to take this column, and I want to make it green. So I'm going to go up here and fill this with green. What's a good green M&M color? Ew, I wouldn't eat an M&M that was that color. Maybe that one. But you can select the cells that you want to change and then choose the color. Oops. Choose that. You can also then, for impact, choose the color of the text that you want. I can tell you from experience that changing it to red makes it more difficult to see with black text than it does with white, as white pops a little bit more. Same thing with brown. If I change this background to brown, and we don't have a very convincing brown color, I can always click Custom here, bring this up and see if I can find a a brown. I'm never very good at finding brown, so we're going to call this one our brown. But then I can change the text to white, which makes it more interesting. Good, so we've updated our colors and we've got a nice little thing going here. So I'd like to see what our average color distribution is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select average right here and drag all the way down through our colors. And I'm actually going to insert a chart. What kind of chart do I want? So in order to create a simple chart, and take a look at this in a different way, I can grab and select my data labels and all of my individual data. Can choose the insert chart, and I'm interested to see what this distribution looks like, so I'm going to choose one of these. And look how good that looks. It gives you a preview of what these will look like. This is really powerful when comparing different groups of data. I could also do it this way. Heck, even this way. Frankly, this is my favorite. I'm going to insert that. Now, if I wanted to, I could customize this and make this data a little bit different. I'll move it over here. Change the colors up just a little bit. Do some different things with that. But I think it's really powerful. So, this is all that's required. When you're ready to share it with me, make sure, and this is the important step, you click on Share. You'll notice it says Private. Only people listed below can access. This is not an issue of national security. So select Public on the web. Hit Save, and it will give you the URL that you can then copy and paste into your portfolio. Now, you know what comes next.